Hello and welcome to the FSU versus Georgia Tech edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham, and joining me today will be Osceola publisher Jerry Kutz and former FSU football stars and current Osceola football analyst Mark Salva and Kez McCorvey to talk about FSU's dominating 41-16 win over Georgia Tech on Saturday afternoon in Doak Campbell Stadium. The win moves FSU to 5-3 and 3-3 in the conference play and a game away from bowl victory. Jerry, it was good to see Florida State get back on the winning side of things after 3 straight conference losses. Just kind of talk about what you anticipated going into the game and kind of what you thought about the game.
I like the outcome of the game. You know,
Just makes it
but I was a very frustrated man during the game. That was the most frustrating route I believe I've ever sat through.
Well, it was, we've Mark and I talked about it last night on First Impressions. The stats, everything favors FSU, right? But it was not a particularly clean game, and defense was dominant to start, and of course did not play as well in the second half, although it's hard to say they played bad. No. In particular, the offense struggled a little bit in the first half, and I think that's where some of the coming off week, some of the frustration was, and misalignments, those kind of things. And we want to bring in Kez and Mark and talk to them a little bit about that. But guys, we'll welcome them in now, Kez and Mark in now. Listen, FSU did dominate the game pretty much for the entirety of the game, but started out a little bit slow on offense. Kez and Mark, I'll start with Mark. What do you attribute FSU's struggles on offense in the first quarter, where there were some alignment issues on the goal line, kind of a curious play call at the half-yard line on third down, and then obviously, Jordan Travis was not particularly sharp early, missed some receivers that were open, and then of course you had some key penalties. But just talk a little bit about why you guys thought coming off an off week they were a little bit sluggish, at least, or not sharp on offense.
Yeah, the why, I'm not sure. I will say, coming out offensively, it was all self-induced. The first series, we had some good runs. The throw to Preston Daniels down the line, he was open, man. He was, good throw there. He puts a little air under it. He could catch that and go all the way. Instead, he zipped it 100 miles an hour and he couldn't handle it. It was a high, hard one. And then we go for it on fourth down and drop the pass, right? Second series, Pittman scores on the screen on third down. He scores if he takes it outside. Cam McDonald had that guy pinned to the inside, and he cut it up. If he breaks to the outside on that screen, he scores. And then they run the jet sweep to him. If he takes it outside, he probably walks in. Instead, he cut it up and fell a little bit short, And then you have the Wildcat play, which I'm fine with. Look, I mean, it's to me, I know a lot of people have different opinions on this, but you're trying to preserve Jordan Travis and you're trying to execute with numbers. We're not the most physical offensive line, and you're trying to get a numbers advantage, and it's a simple execution of just catching the ball. And I know there's an argument. I don't know. That's something that a lot of people think about the mentality of the team. I bet they wanted to come out and start fast. I'm willing to think that during film study they believed that they were the superior team, and defensively that bore out. That came out just like we thought it would. But offensively, maybe a little rust. I don't know. It just wasn't sharp though.
Mark, before we go to Kez real quick, it wasn't like we started slow, in my opinion. Right. I mean, we came out guns blazing, but then it'd be a play here, a play there, and that's the frustration part to me is you have a lot of real good gains in those drives, and then you don't make it happen.
Right.
It is
the thing too. Yep. I was going to say, I was thinking about this morning, and we just blew these guys out and had a tremendous amount of yards and stuff. You can look at this from two perspectives, right? You can look at it from the perspective of the last 3 years and say, man, we really played good relative to the last 3 years, right? 3 years ago, we would have taken this win hands down and been dancing in the streets, right? But if you look at it from the perspective of a 92, 93, 94 Kez McCorvey team, that was a terrible first quarter, So, I mean, there's to it. I think we're clouded a little bit by execution-wise yet with some of the players that we have. They'll get there, I think. But
I think to some we're parsing exactly what dominant is, right? I mean, as you said, FSU 642 yards, Georgia Tech 246. Georgia Tech not have a drive over 19 yards in any of its first 7 possessions, and then Florida State scores on 7 of its last 8. So you're right, Marcus. I think sometimes we have a tendency to be a little bit overcritical, and we're looking for the perfect game. And as we know, sometimes those things don't happen, and most times you don't play a perfect game. But Kez, going back to you, I mean, is there anything in particular that struck you about the not maybe as Jerry said, it wasn't slow, but not sharp on offense in the first quarter?
Tend to be critical now, Mark. You just take away my criticality. My criticality. Be critical, man.
Go for it, Kez.
I know. Hey, you know what? I mean, I say the same thing, man. The score was what it was, and the end result was what it was too. But I'll say this right here too. Just the beginning of the game, the things you're looking for is you get big plays. You get some times where you're moving the ball, you have successful plays, but it's the inconsistencies that are the concerning thing for me. Okay, I think you're getting all those ingredients into the pot right here, but now do they taste good? Do they taste the good? Accent. Do they taste the good? There's the flavor now. And so I mean by that is this right here is being able to connect on those third down and short plays, and not having the negative plays that we seem to have sometimes. Every now and then we'll have a great play. The first play I saw that run, that outside zone, I thought, man, we're gonna dominate. This game is done. We're gonna dominate this game. But then we come back and we miss a play with the wheel route by the tight end, and we missed that, man. We missed that, and then we on third down we run like a little trail route where we run the out off of it, and then we missed the throw, and then we missed the catch too as well, and so a lot of misses, a lot of opportunities where we're physically better than them, but the mental pieces, the mental execution of the game plan that we want to execute, we don't necessarily do it all the time. And so I see the talent is there, the ability is there, but then there's the small detailed execution to move the sticks and be consistent are not there. And so the same thing on the goal line too as well. You get all the way down there. You get all the way down there. You had successful plays enough to be able to get all the way down there. And then on the goal line, guess what you do? You make a mistake, a key mistake. All right. And so those are some of the things that we need to improve. And that's not physical, right? That's not even coaching, that's psychological. And so it's a psychological change that needs to happen to where the guys realize that, you know what, I'm just that good. And I know that's not sound like Dion, but you know what, you got to get to the point where you say, I'm just that good, where I don't have to panic. It's not a big deal for me scoring touchdowns. I score touchdowns all the time. Okay, I run this play all the time. This is all the time the stuff that I do right here. So guess what? I'm gonna wait an extra second to catch this ball, and I'm gonna trust that my guy's gonna be in position, and I don't have to hit the panic button to try to go early to make this play and then risk making a mistake. That's what I see.
Because I was gonna say on that goal line play where they did the direct snap, the Wildcat play. Every Tuesday and Wednesday they practice that play at practice, and they're going against the defense when they do it. It's not like they just pulled it out of their hat and ran it in that game. Now, what I question is the intensity with which they run it. At practice, they try to make it simulate a game, but it didn't like you guys when you practiced, and it was best against best, and it was a war. It is live when they run it, but it doesn't have that same level of intensity that game day has. And going back to your point of the mental aspect of, I know our defense can't stop this play, so this Georgia Tech ain't gonna be able to stop it.
I agree. I think that's part of the deal, and how that fits in within our game plan and what we're trying to do too. That we got to address that. Coach Andrews always talks about that goal line, competition that we had against the offense and defense that we had on a consistent basis. And so that prepared them defensively for, stopping Kansas 10 times on the goal line, right? And so I think that's part of us too as well. And I think that's just part of getting older too. As I became an older player, that became old hat. Me beating a guy on the goal line on a route or something like that, I didn't worry about it. It was like, that's done deal, because I've done it so many times in higher situations with the intensity in the stakes that the things that are at stake are higher than this situation here. And so I see the guys getting better because as the game went about, where it could have went left, they took over and started to dominate. And
Yes,
so
Kez, I was going to say, you are right. They did take over. Whenever they gained 511 yards of offense from the second quarter on, what did you see that changed that for Florida, changed the success? They found big plays in the passing game, rediscovered that. We had not seen that. I think they had 8 pass plays of over 24 yards, including a touchdown of over 70 and another one of over 60 to Lawrence Toafili. What did you see from the offense from the second quarter on that kind of changed the nature of that game?
Well, we are a running team, right? We are a running team, and when our run game goes well, then everything else goes well because we run and we run play action pass. Now we made a couple of throws on third downs where we got some first downs in situations where we're not usually good at, but we are first down running team where we dominate the line of scrimmage and we get lanes and our running backs get good runs, and then when we get a chance to suck those guys up and we get a chance to be able to put some play actions in there too as well, and we were able to do that, right? The Ja'Kai Douglas touchdown was it's a great. I love that play anyway, but it's really a great play action where they actually can read that guy. I think it was a read where he read that guy stuck up on the line of scrimmage, and then it was a post on the outside, and then it was a wheel by the number 2. He was faking like he was blocking for the bubble, and then he ran the wheel up the corner, and then you get a chance to hit that because we got a chance to have some great running games, some running opportunities to put that pressure on the defense to be able to play those 2 different scenarios. And so I think that's what we do, man. What we do is we run the ball, we play action, and then we get a chance to have we're not going to ever have, I don't think so, not yet, have where we have 38 receptions or 38 completions. But we'll have 24, and we'll have 20 yards per catch. And we'll have guys, have big plays. That's what we do. And so that got into our rhythm and what we're good at. And so that's what we want to stay in most of the game is that same type of rhythm.
Mark, speaking about being a running team, you've been wanting to see more of Trey Benson this year, and we got a little taste of him Saturday.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Trey gives us a physicality, an element to our offense that no other back that we have has. Ward is a shifty guy. Toafili is pretty physical in between the tackles, but he's 180 pounds, 185 pounds. Trey gives you something a little different. That's fun when you're locked up on guys and guys, you can feel the guy kind of running by you and a guy reaching out an arm and he runs right through that arm and you stay on him and bury guys like that. That's a fun way to play the game. This is how Sammy used to be. Used to love blocking for Sammy that way. He'd run through some arm tackles and he'd just knock guys down. But I agree with Kez. The funny thing is, that first quarter you saw the opportunities were there. It was just a matter of they couldn't cover us. Right. It was just a matter of execution. And Jordan put a little air under the ball and down some of those downfield throws. And he did that, and really, I think the big play that got us going into the second quarter was the 3rd and 20 roughing call on Jordan Travis.
Yeah.
That was the big play. That got us a first down and it led to the touchdown for us to take the lead. So that was that was a big play because it really the I guess it was a holding call or something they called on Robert Scott. That was a crappy call and put us in the hole. So I thought that was kind of a makeup call. So for me, it was just a matter of execution and, getting the running game going, like Kez says. It just opens up opportunities down the field and gives our receivers opportunities to make plays on one-on-one coverage because it was evident early on they couldn't cover us.
Yeah, and listen, FSU completed 10 passes to 10 different receivers. And Kez, Jordan may not have been as sharp as we would like to see him coming out in the first quarter, but certainly had the best game passing yards wise of his career, 396 yards, 3 touchdowns. Just talk about his overall performance and his continued development at quarterback.
Yeah, you know what I do. I love the way he is looking down the field in the midst of pressure too. And so a lot of times in the past he was tucking his head and he was ready to run, and now he's got to head down the field too. And for us, the running game helps us to be able to get those one-on-one matchups. I saw some really good routes. I saw Ja'Kai on a corner route, and I saw him stem inside and knock this guy's hands up, straighten back up. And that's, to me, that's stuff where you are creating separation. And then, we saw some throws to Johnny too as well with one-on-one because going so good to where they felt this, they needed to have those safeties and run support positions. And so now we get a chance to have one-on-one on the outside with guys like Johnny. And Johnny had 2 different catches that solidified in the defensive mind that we cannot leave these guys open to play one-on-one, which now put them in double jeopardy. Now, how do we stop the run? And then how do we stop these guys that have proven to us that they're legit on the outside to make plays? And that's what we want. That's what we want.
Kez, you're really good because you've already answered the question I had for you next. But so I do want, we did see, 10 guys. Lawrence Toafili led the team with 5 catches, 85 yards. Johnny Wilson led the team in reception yards, 111 on 3 catches. But the guy I kind of want to ask you guys about is Ja'Kai Douglas. He's back. He's healthy. Mike had mentioned being excited about getting him back in the offense. And I think we saw why, right? 4 catches, 63 yards. Just kind of talk, and both of you can. You might have seen different things, but what can he bring to this FSU offense? He's just another playmaker that quite frankly we didn't know we had in Ja'Kai coming into the season.
Well, I say this right here. I think it's comfort, right? Quarterbacks have their favorite receivers. All right, so I'm gonna say this right here. Having been a favorite receiver, I'm sorry, Matt Pryor, sorry, Kevin Knox, Amari, but having been a favorite receiver, all right, quarterbacks have their guy that they're comfortable with, right? So they don't think about it; they just react and respond because they comfort. I think Ja'Kai's one of his guys that he's comfortable with, right? Throwing the ball in the slot, and so I think it's good to have those guys back that you have comfort and have a rhythm with, and that type of stuff too. So I think it was great to have him in the game, and I thought he played well. I was wondering to see how he would play and how he would respond, but it seemed like he seemed quick. He seemed like he was, back to just like when he left, right? He was making plays last year, and then this year he's making plays again when he gets back healthy too. And I think a lot of the guys seemed like they were, in rhythm, making plays, having confidence. The tight end caught some balls, and the outside receivers caught some ball. And when you get all the different pieces in place right there, it makes for a good night because you can't focus on one guy.
Yeah, and to that point, we haven't even talked about Lawrence Toafili's game. He had 5 catches and another 13 carries. I think he had 18 touches for about 150 yards. But, Mark, I want to ask you about the offensive line. Georgia Tech, the strength of their team had been their defense, particularly their defensive front. They were one of the best teams at making plays behind the line of scrimmage in the country coming into this game, despite their struggles. But Florida State gives up 1 sack and only 3 tackles for a loss in the game. Just talk about the performance of the offensive line.
Yeah, I was pleasantly, I won't say surprised, but I was pleased by the way they played in general. I think Rob Scott's playing at a pretty high level for sure. I love our middle 3. Maurice Smith, Dylan Gibbons, and Dimitri Emmanuel, I think are really, really solid. They're pretty physical guys. The thing I know is we're running a lot more zone inside, not as much counter gap stuff as we started the year out, and what that tells me is that those guys are getting a feel for each other on their fits, getting a feel, how and react, and they have that nonverbal communication about how they're going to handle certain blocks. And that Jazz played his best game Darius Washington played a significant amount of snaps. I think I was looking at Darius Washington some when I thought Jazz was in there 76, 79, whatever. Be that as it may, the tight ends blocked well too. So yeah, they're slow. They're getting better and better. They get better and better every week, and that's a testament to Alex Atkins and the work those guys are putting in. We're still, I would still like us to see on the goal line knocking people off the ball in short yardage situations, but we're still not there yet, but we're getting closer, right? So I'm looking forward to see them continue to progress, especially these next few weeks.
Yeah, well, listen, it was an outstanding performance by the offense. Again, 642 yards scored on 7 of its last 8 offensive drives. But, Jerry, we haven't even got to what was a stellar defensive performance. Yeah. Florida State gave up 3 yards in the first quarter to Georgia Tech, 24 for the first half. They had a little bit more success in the second half, but just your overall thoughts on the defensive performance.
Yeah, I thought that the first half they were terrific.
Yep.
So let's stick with the good part first before we get critical. They just seem very much poised. Nothing seemed to surprise them. They got lined up and they played ball, unlike what was happening over on the offense. and they made some great stops. I mean, when we fumbled the ball at the goal line,
74-yard return.
he returns it. I was so impressed with Jordan Travis. I mean, he came from the far side on the sideline from like the 5 and ran that guy down and made a pretty nice tackle.
Well, you know what was impressive to me about that whole little chasing the number 1 down, I think it's Rogers that picked up the ball and ran it back. It looked like Lawrence Toafili and Jordan Travis understood where each other was on the flank. Like they understood leverage. I mean, it was kind of, we've seen DBs that have not done that well in the past. So,
it's not the second half.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
we did, and we'll get into that. But certainly, that was fun to watch because those guys looked like they'd played defense before. I was a little bit concerned. Jordan got up a little slow from that play.
Well, he got something in his eye.
Yeah, well, at first I was up in the press box. I was worried it was a concussion, but it was not. It was he got a finger in the eye. But hey, Mark and Kez, obviously an outstanding performance by Florida State on defense. You get Fabian Lovett back. Jared Verse is 2 weeks healthier. When that guy's healthy, boy, can he come off that edge. Yeah. We saw outstanding play by both Tatum Bethune and Jamie Robinson led the team with 10 tackles. You know, we knew Georgia Tech was not great on offense coming into the game. They had issues on the offensive line. They were playing 2 quarterbacks that had not played a tremendous amount, at least not in Georgia Tech's system. And then Zach Pryon was a true freshman who was playing his first game ever. And we'll get into a little bit about Zach because he was impressive in that second half. But just your overall impressions of the defense and anybody that stood out to you.
Yeah. For me, I was impressed by how fast they played. And I think that was born from the plan to blitz and run some stunts early in the game, try to take advantage of our advantage over their offensive line. And, that enabled our guys to really get up the field, play fast, not have to do a lot of reading, just run and hit. And I think that's when we're at our best, honestly. It looked good. And I'm going to say this. I think the emergence of Patrick Payton has absolutely solidified this defense because now we have Dennis Briggs able to move inside and solidify those middle defensive tackles. Him having the ability to be productive on the outside just gives us that much more flexibility up front. It was really good to see Malcolm Ray. It's good to see Cooper, see McClendon. I mean, we're starting to see some depth emerge up front that can only help us down the line. And oh, by the way, our linebackers are playing fast, and seeing Amari Gaynor out there again, getting more depth back in the game is really, really making me feel good. So it was good to see them play fast. I think when we got in a little trouble there in the second half was, we didn't quite play the same way. Then when we started blitz, at least to me, anyways, and maybe it's just a matchup with Georgia Tech the way it was, but when we're doing those kinds of things, we're at our best.
Yeah, FSU credit with 10 tackles for losses, 4 sacks on the day. Fabian Lovett gets back, and that was a big deal. Kez, just talk a little bit about your thoughts on the overall performance of the defense from your perspective.
Line too, and when Five's in the game too, man, he just puts so much pressure. I see the quarterback moving up quick. He's looking, he got his eye to the left all the time because he knows Five's coming on that corner, man. And so, that's always the benefit. I tell you one of the areas where I'm and actually 10 played great too as well. I thought he really played really good as far as getting to the ball and putting out fires. That's his job. His job is to put out fires, come up, make tackles, make sure they don't get first down. They can get 5, they can't get 7. It's 3rd and 7. You can get 5, but you can't get. I'm gonna put this fire out. And I thought he did a great job with that too as well. And I think Helen DeLoach does a great job with that too, of putting out fires. He's so fast. He's one of the fastest linebackers. I think we see around. And he's great at putting out fires. One of the areas I thought that we may have struggled in still, I think we struggled in earlier in the year, is the bunch formation, right? When they bunch up and they got 3 receivers over there and they run some rub routes and they got misdirection there. And so we've had a hard time just kind of filling that out. That corner route that Georgia Tech called earlier in the game for the touchdown, right, was on that type of formation too as well. We got to weed out who was coming out. And we just didn't do a good job of kind of weeding out, who was going to take, who got deep, who's over top, and who's underneath. And so I think we just got to get better at that too. And I think we got a couple of angle routes where they, in the bunch they were going out and they came back in, and they knew that, right? And so I think some teams are taking advantage of some of the tendencies that we have in those bunch formations that are giving them some options to be able to get some first downs. And so I think definitely we need to probably, spend a lot of time defending bunch before we get to the next game, so we don't have that issue be a continuing issue. Bunch is hard, right? Bunch is hard, but there's some great strategies that I've seen people have to take away some of those things that people like to do when you get all those people in one spot. So that would be my concern. I thought the defense played great. They played fast, and you got a fast defense, man. You got something.
Kez, without getting out of grease board, could you help us understand how that bunch formation works for the average viewer that doesn't really quite understand what makes it hard?
What happens is right here is you have three offensive players right next to each other. You'll probably have a middle guy, usually your tight end. You probably have an inside guy, and you probably have an outside guy. They're within a yard of each other, right? And so what it does, it makes it hard for you to play man because you got to chase through picks. But also on defense, if you're playing zone, now you got guys that you want to get your hands on guys, but you got guys that you have to run through to play the zone. You got three guys in one zone, and then who's going to take the zone? Who's going short? Who's going higher? And who's going to the next level? And so you can easily overpower a zone by putting three people in one zone. Or if you're playing man, you got to run through some picks to do that. On third down, guess what? When you got third down and 3 or 4 or 5, you don't need very much yards. So if you play zone, it's going to leave a hole. And so it's a very hard deal to play and try to chase man coverage through those picks that those additional guys are trying to set. And so that's what bunch does for you, and that's why it's so good. That's why a lot of teams like to do it, and that's why people have been doing that on us to be able to get some success on third down and medium.
Yeah, well, guys, I think if there's any concern coming out of this game defensively, and listen, as we're talking about, I think we're nitpicking here. Georgia Tech had 142 of their 264 yards on this last two drives. The game was over. We had guys that had not played since Boston College. But Zach Bryan, a true freshman quarterback, was 18 of 28 for 198. Pretty good for a true freshman, never played in a college football game, particularly given the fact that he had no help in the running game, really no help from his offensive line. However, looking forward, Miami is a much better offense throwing the ball, particularly when Tyler Van Dyke is healthy. They're 22nd in the nation at 290 yards per game through the air. Does what happened in the second half with Georgia Tech give you any pause for concern moving forward into Miami?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, we here's the thing. A lot of times we have guys in position to make plays and they don't make them. The thing that concerns me more than anything is our lack of generating turnovers. And we had some opportunities to do that. I mean, was it Renardo Green had one right through his hands? Yeah. I mean, to me, that's the thing that concerns me the most is having guys in position to make plays and not making them. Because I think for the most part, other than a bust like what happened last night in the bunch where we had two guys covering the flat, nobody covering the corner, other than that, generally we have guys in good spots, just not making plays. And so that's the part I'm looking for us is for those guys to step up and start making those plays.
Well, what we did see in this game, and Jerry brought this up in our pre-production meeting, Fitzpatrick kicked 2 field goals, 2 of 2 heading into this game. And obviously, as we get ready to head to Miami, when we think of Miami, we think of the kicking game. Yeah. Now, it's probably a small thing in the grand scheme of things for the Georgia Tech game, but how big were those kicks for Fitzpatrick moving into Miami week?
Well, the Georgia Tech game period where you blow somebody out is great for the confidence. We talked about psychology earlier. In the deal, and so that's part of it. Going out there and stopping them in their run, and then being able to run the ball, and then being able to kick field goals successfully bodes well for us going to that Miami game. Because this right here, if Miami gets in a position where they think they can win, they're gonna play harder, right? And so for us, I'll say this about the Georgia Tech game. My hope was to make them quit earlier. All right, in football, a lot of teams quit, right? They quit. And we allowed Georgia Tech to play a little bit longer in the game than they should have been playing because we didn't make them hit the quit button. So we always made them hit the quit button, but then we let off. And so we got to go ahead and make Miami do the same thing. Miami will quit too. They're not the Miami of old, and they'll quit too. Their quit button is probably in the second quarter too as well, if you get on top of them. But if you let them hang around, they'll stave off the attack. They won't hit the button so quick. They'll keep playing because we haven't thrown all the chips in. So I think for us, confidence. All right, that we can kick the ball, that we can make those calls, comes for the coaches as well to make those play calls that they want to make and not have to worry about got a dog that's shaking. But covers those guys to make those play calls in the game and cover those guys to make plays. And then something for those guys in Miami to worry about too. They got to worry about the guys on the outside. They got to worry about Jacob Douglas. They got to worry about our run game. And they're great at the run. They're good at stopping the run. But at what cost? Are they willing to pay the cost to play one-on-one outside with our guys that have been making plays? So that would be the question for me.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, having that option, knowing that Fitz is back on track and making field goals, that affects your play calling down in the red zone a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe especially if the game started to get tight at the end and where points start becoming a premium. Maybe like Kez says, you do take a shot and kick a field goal instead of trying to run it to get to 4th and 1. So that can kind of having that in your back pocket is a thing. I mean, it's a viable thing for a play caller to have. And look, obviously their field goal kicker is good, right? He kicked what 5 yesterday, 4 or 5. So and the other thing I saw too, I mean, I just saw some quick highlights, but Virginia had 1st and goal inside the 5 twice and got nothing but field goals out of it, and so, Miami obviously is playing some good red zone defense, at least they did last week. And that, of course, is our Achilles heel. So points become a premium, especially in rivalry games. So that's huge for us.
Mark, before we go to break, I just wanted to make the comment that the confidence of Ryan Fitzpatrick was important with the made kicks. But I was thinking about Mike Norvell too, because when you get down there and you're play calling, the head coach has got to have some confidence that he does have an ace in his back pocket. So confidence affected a lot of things yesterday.
Well, hey, listen, just a side note, this is Mike Norvell's first trip to Miami. He missed for his initial trip because of COVID. So this will be his first experience in what should be a rocking Seminole Hard Rock on Saturday. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about the storied rivalry between FSU and Miami, between two guys who have had starring roles in those games. And we'll be right back in 30 seconds after a message from Alumni Hall.
Alumni Hall, where you'll find officially licensed FSU gear for the entire family, including brands like Nike and Champion, plus great gifts for your favorite Seminole and home decor too. Miss some of the old Seminole throwback logos? Check out our College Vault collection. Shop online at alumnihall.com and let our great customer sales team ship to you within days. Or pick up in store in Tallahassee. You'll find us in the Miracle Plaza Shopping Center on Thomasville Road. Students and military get 10% off in store. Alumni Hall.
Well, guys, I think as Florida State graduates and 2 former Florida State football players, there's several games we always highlight on our calendar every year, and it is Miami week, and that means something to all of us here. We've seen the storied history of this rivalry going back to the mid '80s. It's a rivalry that helped build both programs. But in addition to becoming bowl eligible and finishing the season strong, it has huge implications in recruiting. And it's, a win over a rivalry just means more, and it would be 2 straight for Mike Norvell. Mark and Kez, we want to ask you guys this. What does the rivalry game mean to current Florida State and Miami players in your estimation? Is it the same as it used to be?
I mean, I don't know how it can be. The stakes are near what they used to be, right? However, it is the rivalry game, for the players' perspective. I mean, I don't know what Kez thinks, but I know with my guys, this was the game we wanted to win more than anything because, like I said, the stakes were great. The players on both sides of the team, a lot of South Florida guys. I mean, it was a huge game, and it meant everything to us. And I think it played out in the way these games were played. The intensity of these games were just off the charts, right? The quality of play was just off the charts. And, you know, if these guys have any inkling of the history, and I think they do, because I think Mike does a good job of doing that, you know, as evidenced by, you know, doing the victory walk and the things that we're able to do as ex-players with the team. I mean, I think they should have a pretty good idea what this means, and hopefully they internalize it and they come out with the required intensity.
Yeah. You know what, man? I got the blessing, or is it something opposite, of playing my professional career with a bunch of University of Miami players, Benny Blades and Brett Perriman and Ryan McNeil, which it was terrible because I had to hit a mile all the time over there for them ride rights. You know what? Honestly, it was to me, playing Miami, it was the most exciting environment I've ever played in. Really, honestly, I mean, it was the energy playing in the Orange Bowl and playing down at Tallahassee against those guys. It was intense. And you loved it too as well. So I don't know if they have that same emotional feel because they hadn't had the implications that are involved in it. And then, you know, this Joe Robbie is not necessarily the Orange Bowl, and so I don't know if they've seen the intensity of the crowd, you know, that was there in the Orange Bowl too as well. So, but I think they need to forget that though. I think they need to make their own viewpoint, get their own confidence right here. Don't worry about what happened in the past, and just, you know what, man, we coming out, and I don't care what you think, how many rings the school has over in Miami. You can have a gazillion rings, but you ain't gonna get one this year. You can get this L. And so I'll be, if somebody came up there and said, man, I don't care what happened in the past, I would be cheering for them so they can set their own path and own pattern for how they're going to play Miami.
Well, Jerry, I got a question for you. You're a Miami native.
Yeah.
You unfortunately started your life as a Miami fan.
I did.
You've been to a lot of these ball games. What does the rivalry mean to the FSU fan base and the university, and to you personally?
Yeah. I was the obnoxious little kid that made your life miserable when you were in the stadium down there. We grew up there in that neighborhood where the House of Horrors was, you know, the old Orange Bowl. That's where I lived. You might have parked in my front yard. I'm not sure. But it's always been a super intense game. I mean, from the fan standpoint, I'll just tell you that about Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County supply a large percentage of our students. Yep. A lot of our alumni base lives down there, and they got to live with those people year round. And so when it comes to win a game, which game would you win if we can only win one? I think most of our fan base in South Florida would say we got to win the Miami game because we have to live with these people. And so it is a very intense game. But I got to tell you, I haven't missed that game. I don't know. I missed a few probably when I was in college. Saw them up here, but didn't see them necessarily down there. So I've seen 50 of them probably in my life. And the thing about it is, you know, in the stadium they're in now, it's not the same as what, you know, the atmosphere as Kez and Mark played in the old Orange Bowl, the House of Horrors. Man, I love that place. And it was a sad day when they tore it down because freaky things would happen in that place. I mean, I could tell stories all day long about crazy stuff that happened in there. Mark, you and Kez know what I mean. The distractions in that stadium were ridiculous. And so it is a little easier when you go into this stadium. It's not as odd as
it's a more sterile environment.
It's more sterile. It's more manageable, I think. But yeah, did you guys have any favorite memories of the old Orange Bowl before we get into this year's game?
Yeah, that you can share.
I'll tell you. I got two or three that I'll share. I remember. I think it was Vanover taking the opening kickoff back in '92. I believe it was right. That was just, that place just exploded. I remember. I'll say this. I think it was '90. We were there. Maybe. This is Yeah, even years we were there. So in 90, no. Let me back up. We were playing we played in the Orange Bowl against Nebraska in 92, the year before the national championship, right? I remember we're in the home locker room, and I reach up over in the coach's locker room on the top of the locker, and I pull out a defensive tip sheet for a Hurricane game from earlier in the year. And it had all their calls and all their stuff on it, all their keys. If they're lined up here, we're going to run this stunt. If we line up, the nose guard shades this way, we're going to run this stunt. I mean, it had the names of their call. I mean, it was gold, Jerry. It was gold. And I remember me and Brad and just breaking it down and going into that 93 year, we had a bead on everything. If a 3 technique moved to a 4 technique, from outside shade of the guard to inside shade of the tackle, that meant this. And I mean, we had all kinds of keys, and we drilled that into our guys, and it really paid dividends. So I can tell that now. I think the statute of limitations is over on that. Right?
Hey, Mark, did you ever think for a minute that they might have planted that there?
No, not for a minute. Not for a minute. Don't worry. Hey, we did the whole trust but verify thing, right? I mean, we made sure all that stuff held up. I promise you.
Kez, what are your some of favorite memories of the Orange Bowl?
Just players that you heard about and going against and all this, kind of like, it's kind of like you hear about Jesse Armstead and you got to go out there and block them, and then Darren Smith and then Michael Barrow too, and all those guys that were in the middle right there too as well. And funny now, me and a lot of those guys we're friends, and we get a chance to talk about those days too as well. But back then it was just such a rivalry, man. I was just my insides were boiling just to play the game, man. Just the excitement of it. And I just couldn't, it was one of the most exciting times of my life to where, of playing football, that moment. Even past professional, because that game was such a rivalry, so emotional, because the guys before me on the team had built that thing up so big. It's the Miami game. I watched it on TV, right? I watched the year before I came out to Florida State. I watched the Florida State game when Dexter Carter put the flag on top of the head. I watched all that right now, and now to be a part of it, right? And now I'm walking in this dream world, all right, of college football right here into the very rivalry in the most wonderful rivalry in the country, and you're in it now, and you're in it. And so it's like, that's what it was like to me. The first year was just like, I was just like in dream zombie land, and just out there playing. And then, as you keep moving through it, man, you kind of get a little bit more confident. But that's one of the best experiences in football, period, that I've had, is that UM game.
It was. I remember Jerome Brown, right? Going up against Jerome Brown. I remember Jesse Hester on 38 Z reverse option to win the game 38-3 in 84. There's some really good memories playing in that place, and it's like you said, Jerry, a house of horrors. Just intensity, you can cut it with a knife in that place.
I used to work with Bernard Clark, the linebacker that Dexter Carter put the flag on top of at the University of South Florida for a season. And if I ever wanted to get under his skin, all I had to do was say Dexter. And so he was kind of fun to mess with on that. Hey, we're going to have plenty of coverage on Miami as we move forward with First and Know Your Enemy, and Osceola Tailgate, guys. But I do want to get just kind of your general thoughts. Miami is 4-4. Overall 2-2 in ACC play, coming off the loss to Duke, then a Virginia victory 14-12, I believe, and 4 overtimes, which is crazy to think in a college game that had 4 overtimes, 26 total points. But just how much have you guys seen of Miami, and what are your overall thoughts? And Mark, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I saw them early against Texas A&M and obviously Middle Tennessee. Saw some stuff there, but even before the Middle Tennessee game, I think I made the comment on this show or one of our shows, that Miami really hadn't earned their ranking. They were ranked fairly high, and I didn't see it. I thought they had some challenges along the offensive line. I don't think their defensive line was as good as everybody was saying, not top 10. So obviously that bore out to be somewhat true, and they're struggling offensively with. I don't know if I know what's changed. The coordinators changed, and obviously the head coach has changed, and so different philosophy and different approach. But so they've struggled offensively. Defensively, they seem to be giving up a lot of big plays. So, have they rectified that a little bit? I mean, I don't know, how good Virginia is. I don't think they're very good, but they obviously kept them out of the end zone. Like I said earlier, they had 2 goal line stands, inside the 5 first and goal, and they didn't score touchdowns. So something's been corrected. Regards to who the quarterback is, they're going to have athletes. Offensive line's getting better a little bit. I did see the Virginia game. They seem to be getting after it, so it's not going to be a walk in the park, regardless of what Vegas says. I mean, this is an away game for us against an in-state rival. It's going to require our best and best intensity. So be ready.
And Vegas has opened the lineup at 7 points. Florida State a favorite on the road. Kez, just your overall thoughts on the Hurricanes from your and how much have you seen of them so far this year?
So I see them on defense. They've excelled at stopping the run only because they've been so porous in the past, and so teams hadn't had to run the ball on them a whole lot because they've just been, the secondary hasn't played with a lot of vigor. I'm gonna say that right there. I don't know if it's talent, but they just hadn't been aggressive. They hadn't played a lot of hard. They hadn't hustled a whole lot. And so I think that's part of the problem is, I don't know if they necessarily believe. And so I think that's part of the problem on defense. And then offensively, they don't have the outside skill guys to win consistently outside. And this, I don't know who those guys are, but they just haven't. The tight end done a good job. He's getting open. He's playing pretty good right here. They run the ball pretty decently, but the outside skill guys have not made plays. It is so hard. It is so hard to have 9-play, 10-play drive down the field where you have to ink out first downs after first down after first down without getting a big play. And they just haven't had the ability to create those big plays without trick plays. Now they're going to do the reverse pass to the tight end wheel. They ran like a couple times last year to that tight end again. But as far as having plays where I beat you one-on-one, they don't have. I haven't seen them produce that type of opportunity outside with their skill guys, and so that's going to make it hard for them.
Well, listen, Tyler Van Dyke, the Miami starting quarterback to start the season, came in I think he was voted preseason ACC Player of the Year. If not, he was in the top 2 or 3 in the voting. He started out slow, made some controversial comments that a lot of people think led to him getting benched or replaced in a game by Jake Garcia. But he got hurt against Duke. Was a game time decision against Virginia. Did not play. Jake Garcia struggled. Miami is 22nd in the nation in pass offense, and that's mostly due to Van Dyke, and they do struggle on the offensive line a little bit, Mark. But just how big a difference would it be for FSU to face Jake Garcia as opposed to Tyler Van Dyke?
Oh, it'd be night and day. I mean, it's the guy they have confidence in. Van Dyke's been in this game before. An experienced quarterback that's, the starter, obviously is going to be a huge difference in the confidence of the team. I mean, you saw the effect Jeff Sims not playing last week had on the entire Georgia Tech team. I think when they came out, they didn't think they could compete, and I think that was a large part of why we had a lot of success we had last week. And I think the same opposite effect could happen for Miami if Van Dyke rolls out their Series 1. They'll have a lot more confidence, probably play a lot better than they would otherwise. So, yeah, that would be a huge factor for sure.
Yeah.
Kez, you kind of mentioned Miami's dominance as a run defense. That's kind of the strength of their defense. They're in the back half of the nation in pass defense. I know it's early yet. You probably have not done as much research as you will do this week on this game. But how do you think Mike Norvell and his staff will attack Miami on defense, led by former FSU defensive coordinator Kevin Steele, who obviously has a reputation for being a very, very good coach?
Well, honestly, it's not to our advantage really, because their strength is part of our strength too as well. And so for us to get going, without them having to bring secondary guys and build their next stage of the defense, for them to get going, for us to get going, we're going to have to run the ball, because we've shown that's the type of offense we are. We have to run the ball, and then we're going to create some plays off of those running play action plays that give us other opportunities down the field. And so it's going to be strength versus strength, and I know that Miami already knows that, right? If we can stop this run right here, we can limit some of the other stuff they're going to do without using the safeties, and not using the secondary guys. If we can stop the run, then we have a definite advantage on Florida State too as well. So that's going to be the issue right there. Is okay, how do we either disguise these defenses that use secondary defenders, or how do we do it without having to use our secondary? Can our front 6-5, can they stop our front 6-5 without having to limit and take away from the secondary coverage? And so I think that'll be the issue. As is always the issue in most football teams. And so I hope that we can, and I believe that we can get some push and be consistent. I love, you said earlier, Mark, about running zone. I love us running zone because I think that they'll limit us having negative plays in the backfield where guys are shooting gaps and getting tackles for losses and stuff like that. But I think that's where the game's going to be made at. In that running game, can we consistently get 3 or 4 or 5, actually 4 or 5 or 6 yards or 7 yards a snap? If we do that, then they're gonna have to do something, and then the big boys outside they'll start making some big plays outside, and we might get a chance to be able to run them out of the gym because they're a team that's capable of hitting the quit button. Hit the quit button.
I mean, I think too, how creative can we get in the running game? I think that's one thing that I think when we're at our best, we're using different personnel groups, different formations, motions, try to hit on something. I think we got a little bit of a preview of some of the things that are even possible when we started the game out with Benson and Toafili in the game. And that first run that Benson had, Toafili knocked the ever-living poop out of number 1, right, and split it. I mean, to have both those guys in the game at the same time, then you take a Ja'Kai Douglas who can play in the backfield or play in the slot, where you have matchup problems. So getting creative in the ways that we substitute, in the ways that we line up, and then motion shift, do those kinds of things to create matchups in the running game. Look, they can give us problems defensively, but we for sure can give them problems offensively, and we need to make sure we take the initiative and do that and be creative in the running game and how we present the running game, not necessarily run a bunch of different kinds of runs. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is how we present the running game to dictate advantages in how we can scheme and find holes.
So Kez is predicting a tropical depression for Miami as opposed to hurricane-force winds in Coral Gables on Saturday. Jerry, switch over. You love defensive football. Number one, what are your thoughts of Miami as in totality, and then how would you go about attacking them on offense if you're Adam Fuller?
Well, first of all, I'm always wary of Miami. I mean, I just am. I think you got to go in there. Sometimes, Pat, I remember back in the 90s, Mark, you guys may disagree with me on this, but when we go into that game, I could almost never find a FSU football coach that thought that we had any chance of losing. We went into that game very confident a lot of times, and then found ourselves in a dogfight. And this is something that you got. I don't know. You guys are coaches, but I'm not. So I don't know how you prepare a team for. You look at film of the team, you think, man, we can beat this team. We've got a great plan for them. But how do you keep your team focused on, getting ready for a fight? And that's the first thing I think about when you're a defensive team is you better become prepared to get hit in the mouth the first few plays. And it's how you respond to what Miami does and maintain your poise. I was looking at some stats the other day. I mean, we're back up to being 117th in penalties.
Yeah.
We can't do that down there. I thought Adam Fuller's team played with great poise and pace this week at Georgia Tech, but they weren't playing in that atmosphere.
Right.
And they're not playing Miami kids. And so I think poise, Pat. I think scheme-wise, to Kez's point, they're not super talented on the perimeter. They do like to run it. They do have a tight end that can hurt you.
Yep.
And I just account for those guys. Try to play base. I wouldn't overcommit in the box. Make sure that you can stop the run without committing too much. But I just try to be the best version of us that we can be.
Yep. Well, I want to ask Kez. We'll finish up with this with Mark and Kez and wrap up the show. But listen, Florida State's coming off an impressive win, 5-3, heading into a rivalry game. You guys are both coaches, have been coaches. What is your message? If you're Mike Norvell, what is your message to this team coming out of Georgia Tech and going into Miami week? Mark, I'll start with you.
All right. Yeah, for me, it's about take care of your business during the week. Don't play the game on Monday or Tuesday. Take care of your business. Prepare and start ramping yourself up to peak on Saturday at 6:30 Eastern, I guess it is, right? And just get yourself ready.
Eastern, 6:30 your time.
6:30 my time. Just get ready, like Jerry said, to get in a fight and bring it. Play with confidence. We've demonstrated. You've shown the ability to play really, really good football, make big plays on both sides of the ball. So go in with confidence, but prepare and get yourself ready mentally and physically for this game. Do what it takes.
Yeah. And I would say this right here. I would say that, really the season is in front of us too as well. I mean, the whole purpose of the season is to make sure that you get better every game and improve every game, right? And so they have the opportunity. They lost a close one to NC State. They lost a close one to Wake Forest. They lost a close one. We were still in the game in Clemson too as well. So you have the capability of going and improving your season, improving your team throughout the year. So this is just another progression. You just had a great game against Georgia Tech. You go out there and you whip up on Miami, you whip up on the next couple of games right here. Guess what? Now, your name, your program is where you would like it to be. So there's still things in front of you that you're working for, and this is right in the progression of it right here, right? And so that's what I would tell the team, and I would paint that glass to have full, baby. We ready to play. All right, this is a great game, a great rivalry right here. But man, we getting some guys back healthy too, some guys that have been hurt on our team that are healthy now, and you see what happens on the field when that happens. Georgia Tech, right? Case one right there. Now this game will be just the same right here. So I'll tell my guy, they ain't seen the real Florida State yet. Hey, when they come out this next week right here, we're gonna show them on national TV in a rival game against one of our biggest rivals of all times. We're gonna show them what Florida State football looks like. So that's what I'm telling them. Play ball.
Yeah.
Kez, I think Coach Norvell can have you out at practice this week.
Yeah, let's go win the state championship, and it starts with this game. Right?
Yeah.
Well, listen, how sweet would it be to get bowl eligible for the first time in several seasons with a win over Miami?
Sweet. I'm smoking a cigar for sure.
Well, Jerry, I'm gonna
Sweet as a mojito, which I plan to have a couple of.
I'm sure we all will. I'm sure I'll have to wait till after the game because Mark and I have some work to do after the game ends. Yeah. But I want to give you the last word.
Listen, you know what the best part? I got two highlights of the Georgia Tech game. One is we didn't get anybody hurt, right? We come out of that game healthier than we've been. I can make lemonade out of a lemon.
Well,
but the biggest thing I think is that you can take that film to the players on Sunday and say, guys, we got a lot of cleaning up to do. I mean, we weren't as focused as we're going to need to be against Miami, and there's a lot of stuff in that film from Georgia Tech that could cost us if we do it again in Miami.
Yeah, but
what do you think? What do you think, coaches? So, do you think there's anything to that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's always the easiest time to make corrections is when you win a game. The hardest time to make corrections is when you lose. When you lose, they already beat themselves up, and you come beat them up some more, it's hard. But when you win a game, guess what? It's easy to come out of the room and say, "Hey, man, great job." You got pat on the back, right? Because they pat themselves on the back, and so now it's easy to come in there and say, "Hey, man, you think you're great, but look at these 2 blocks, or look at this route that you didn't run the certain depth right here. We clean this up right here, man. We'll be cooking." And so I really believe we're in the right position. We've lost some games, so we know we're not indestructible, right? But also we got a little confidence too because we just won a game here to where we can come in there with the right mix of confidence versus humility to come in there and be coached and be corrected for the next game.
Yeah, this is a big culture building moment for us as a program, and I'm going to quote the great William McDuffie when he would come in this time of year and say, "They remember what you do in November." And buddy, that's what it's all right there in front of us. This month, this next this next month is going to just absolutely, it could be really, really good, and it's right there in front of them to take, because like I said this after the LSU game, we could beat every team on our schedule if we play to our ability.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's we've come a long way in the last 4 years when we started the Osceola, re-established Osceola as a website. Now we're nitpicking a blowout win.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
Yes, things have certainly changed. Kez and Mark, again, guys, as you guys know, we appreciate the heck out of you guys joining us and taking the time out of your schedules. We know you both got families and Sundays to do and football to. I know you got to probably go break down some film as Kez gets ready to go to the playoffs. I think you guys finished 10-0, correct?
Well, I don't know. I didn't finish 10-0, but the players did.
Okay, well, they great leadership. Hey, the players do what players do.
Players get all the credit, coaches get all the blame, baby.
That's right. Well,
that's the nature.
Kez has got no blame this year. He's got a big old 0 on the right-hand side of that column. So, but guys, thank you for joining us. Hope to have you guys back next week. Mark, of course, will be part of our Osceola tailgate later in the week as we prep for the Miami show. Jerry will have a lot of exciting things going on this week. Know Your Enemy with Roberto Arguello, Aria, and Kurt Weiler will Monday or Tuesday. Mike Norvell will have his press conference tomorrow at 11:30 with the coordinators, and we will have reports coming out of that.
Practice Tuesday. And
practice reports on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we'll hopefully have our Know Your Enemy podcast / video cast with the Rivals Network Miami site. But we want to thank you for joining us, and we will be back next week with more Seminole Sidelines and hopefully celebrating the FSU win over Miami.
Go Noles.
Go Noles. All right.
Good show.
60